Hey, Steve. How are you? Okay, so let us get started. We are on Vav Amid Beis, and with the numbering, Vav Amid Beis 1, you're using the art scroll. So we had learned in the Mishnah that there's a certain amount of time, according to one opinion, that you have to recite Kriya Shema. Okay, so let's just get our bearings one more time by looking at the Mishnah very, very briefly. The Mishnah on Aleph Amid Aleph said, we know from when you have to recite Kriya Shema. That was from the time that the Kohanim begin eating their truma, and you have until when to recite Kriya Shema at night. Ad sofa ashmoret harishona. That's until the end of the first shift. That's what an ashmoret, from the word lishmor, shomer. So if just imagine you have sentries, security guards that take shifts until the first shift is over. That doesn't tell us anything. What does that mean, the first shift is over? As we'll learn, we're talking about angelic shifts, that according to our sages, there are different shifts of angels that watch over our planet or watch over humanity. And you have until the end of the first shift. Now, it still doesn't tell us, the first time, from when do you have to recite Kriya Shema? Okay, we know it's either sunset, nightfall, so we had that discussion. But what does the end of the first shift mean? How long is the shift? We don't even know. So that's what we have to clarify. But that was according to Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim say you have until Chatzos, and Rabbi Gamliel says you have until dawn. And then the Gemara had clarified that the Chachamim and Rabbi Gamliel are not disagreeing, because Rabbi Gamliel is saying that if you missed, that he agrees that with the Chachamim's principle, that lechatchila you have to say it until chatzos. It's a rabbinic institution to prevent you from being lax, because if we don't give you a cutoff at midnight, you may party and then fall asleep, and then you'll never say Kriya Shema. But if you had a party and you realize, I haven't said Kriya Shema yet, and it's not yet dawn, so Gamliel says you have until dawn. What we're going to analyze is now the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, that is, you have until the end of the first shift. Now, we're going to now see a brisa which discusses this idea of shifts. Rebbe Omer, Arba Ashmurot Bayom, the Arba Ashmurot Balayla. The Rebbe says there are 4 shifts at night and 4 shifts during the day. Now we know that you divide a day into 24 hours, but there are 24 halachic hours. There are 12 hours during the day and 12 hours during the night. When you're dealing with the equinox in the fall and the equinox in the spring, 12 hours is 60 minutes, both at night and during the day. We talked a little bit about that, if you recall, when we spoke about, do we start counting from sunrise to sunset or from dawn until nightfall? And then, if we only use sunrise to sunset, then the hours in the day are shortened and the hours of the night are lengthened. It's very rare, therefore, to get an actual 60-minute hour. In the winter, the hours of the day will be sometimes, every hour will be like 47.5, minutes, and the hours at night will be something like 70-something minutes, and vice versa in the summer, right? So it all depends on what time of year. But if we were to, in theory, look at a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night, and there are 4 shifts each night and 4 shifts each day, how long does a shift last for? 3 hours. Very good. Okay, you passed 4th grade math. So then, sha'a echad me'esrim ve'arba'a b'yom. An hour is 1/24 of an entire day, and ha'ona Echad me'esrim v'arba l'shah. Then there's a term that we're not familiar with because what do we have? What's the next smaller unit of measure in the secular world after an hour?
Think about that for minutes.
You have a minute. And then after that, you have a second. So this is where the Gemara's units of measure differ from the secular units of measure. So we all agree, both the secular world and the Jewish world agree that there are 24 hours to a day. But then we break it down. We break down an hour to its smaller unit of measure, not a minute, because there are 60 minutes in an hour, but to an ona. There are 24 onas in an hour. Now, when you think about it, that's more logical. If there are 24 hours in a day, why not have 24 minutes in an hour?
60 is big around.
And then have 24 seconds per minute. Because then you know, where did we go from 24 to 60 and 60?
Right.
So here we're going to go from 24 to 24 to 24.
Yes.
Okay. So ha'ona echad me'esrim v'arba l'shah. There are 24 onas or in an hour. So how much? So a minute is 60 seconds. How many seconds would an ona be? So it's all right, you'll have to do the math. What? 576 seconds. Well, you'd have to divide an hour. An hour is how many seconds? Or 600, divide that by 24. Oh, wow, that's pretty good. 150 seconds. Okay. Okay. Ha'es, echad me'esem v'arba la'ona. And then we have another word called eight or ace. And that's 1/24th of an ona. So an ona is the halachic minute, and an ace is the halachic second. 6.25 seconds. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And harega, and then we have a smaller unit of measure, which is echad me'esrim v'arba la'ace. We have a rega. Rega.
Wait a second.
So when people say
Wait
rega,
a second.
it's even less than a second.
Huh.
How much is a rega? It's 1/24th of that 6.5 seconds. So how much is it?
Blink of an eye. 1.6.
That doesn't make sense. Okay.
1/24th of 6. Oh, no.
It's about a quarter of a second.
About a quarter of a second. Thank you, Wayne. Okay. Now, so we're going to get back to the Ashmoris discussion in just a minute.
Right.
So, Kamahu harega. How much is a rega? You usually hear that. I mean, I used to hear it when I used to take the bus in Israel. Nahag, rega,
Yeah.
because he opened the door and then people trying to get out. Okay, that's
Yeah.
you've all experienced that. But rega, if rega is a quarter of a second, you don't really mean a quarter of a second. You mean give me enough time. So we use it differently today. But Rabbi Berechia b'shem Rabbi Chelba Omer kedei la'omro. You want to know how long a rega is? That quarter of a second approximately, the amount of time that it takes to say rega, which is, I guess, less than a second. V'Rabbanan Amrin, and the Chachamim say, harega keheref ayin. It's like the blink of an eye. How long does it take you to blink your eye?
Expression he used.
Yeah. It's less than a quarter of a second to blink.
It's like a 10th of a second.
Okay.
The regular makes
Marv,
sense.
you're our official inquirer. How long does it take to blink your eye?
Blink.
Hey Siri, how long does it take to blink? How long does it take to blink your eye?
Okay, I found this on the web. For how long does it take to boil? How long does it take to blink your eye? Check it out.
I'm gonna ask chat.
The
She's
rega makes sense, because you can say rega 4 times in a second.
really
Rega.
in seconds. How long does it take to blink your eye?
On average, a single blink takes about 100 to 150 milliseconds. So that's roughly 0.1 to 0.15 seconds per blink. Of course, it can vary a bit from person to person.
Very good.
You could actual representation in the study.
Rabbi, when we announce Rosh Chodesh and all that, so we say on this time, whatever, and 10 Chalakim.
Yes,
All these
what's that?
measures,
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
the- it's another.
it's a different one.
Right?
It's different unit of measure.
I never.
I've said it for years, I don't know what it is.
It's a chelek is one. I used to have it on the tip of my tongue. Explain what a chelek of an hour and a minute is.
Sure. In Jewish tradition, a chelek is a fraction or a part. So when we talk about a chelek of an hour or a chelek of a minute, we're breaking down time into smaller parts. For instance, a common division is that an hour has 1,080 parts. Each part is a chelek, and a minute has 60 parts. These subdivisions help measure precise moments, especially for ritual times or certain halachic calculations.
Yeah, it's 1,080.
She's even got the getting the chur right. I'm impressed. So teach the rest of the world to do it.
Yeah, her stepfather was Jewish. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Impressive.
Okay, so that chelek is I don't remember where the chelek comes from, but it's used in astronomical calculations. This is used. I'm not even sure in what context we use these divisions. Okay, now Tani Shmuel harega echad mechameshet ribo v'sheshet alafim ushmona meos ve'arbaim ushmona l'sha. What is a rega? A rega is one part out of 56,848. One, right. It's one out of 56,848 of an hour. So if we were to divide 60 an hour into 56,000 roughly parts, we would get a rega. So that's a second opinion. So now let's go back to our discussion of what an ashmoret is.
Surprised they didn't have precision keeping equipment. So
Correct.
I don't know how to measure these things. Yeah, you watch these things. So I mean,
A lot of this
concepts.
could be conceptual and not practical. Okay. So now that we've talked about different units of measure, there's one additional unit of measure that is smaller than a second. So we have the yom, we have the sha'a, we have the ona, we have the 8, and then we have the rega, 5 units of measure that we've discussed so far. Okay. What are the ramifications of that? The Gemara doesn't even tell us what the ramifications are. And the so there's a difference of girsa. Some have the girsa that it's one part in 31,848, and the Bavli's girsa is that it's one out of 58,888. So you see the fact that there are different girsaos, different versions of what that tiniest unit of measure is, indicates to us that there may not have been any practical ramifications. But it sort of goes beyond the scope of what we're trying to ascertain. Okay, now we go back to our discussion of what an ashmoret is. We learned that according to Rebbe, an ashmoret is four shifts in the night, each one 3 hours long. But Rebbe Natan Omer Shalosh, that he says there are only 3 shifts at night, each shift lasting 4 hours. Now, how do we know this? This is from a pasuk in Shoftim, talking about Gidon, that Gidon arose, or he came to the edge of the camp, Rosh ha'eshmoret hatichona. When did he do that? In the middle shift of the night, which implies if there's a middle shift, there has to be one before and one after. You can't have a middle shift if there's an even number of shifts. So there must have been only 3 shifts and not 4 shifts. Now, we're going to analyze this machlokes between Rebbe and Rebbe Nassan. Rabbi Zrikan v'Rebbe Ami, b'shem Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Taima de Rebbe. What's Rebbe's reasoning to say that there are 4 shifts? He bases it on a different pasuk in Tehillim, where King David said about himself, Chatzot laila akum lahodos lecha lach al mishpetei tzidkecha. I will arise at midnight to give praise to you, O God, for the statutes of your righteousness. Uchetiv kidmu einai ashmurot. And another pasuk in Tehillim, completely unrelated to the previous one, says that my eyes arose after ashmurot. After ashmurot is plural, so it means after 2 shifts I arose. So if I arose after 2 shifts, and the other pasuk says I arose at midnight, so then what does that mean? It means there must be 2 shifts before midnight and 2 shifts after
Well, it
midnight.
can't be 3, it's plural, so how do you know it's 2?
Well, there could be then 6 shifts,
Right.
right? But usually when you have a plural a statement of plurality, you assume that it's 2. You assume that it's the smallest plurality. Okay, so therefore that's how Rebbe knows that there are 4 shifts. Now, Rebbe Chizkiah Omar, Rebbe Zrekan v'Rebbe Ba, we have this machlokes, and he's expressing it slightly differently from the previous. Chad Omar Taimei de Rebbe v'Charina Omar Taimei de Reb Nassan. We have this machlokes amoraim. One defended the reasoning of Rebbe that it's 4 shifts. One represents the reasoning of Rebbe Nassan that it's 3 shifts. Man de Omar Taimei de Rebbe Chatzos Laila. If you learn the reasoning of Rebbe, you go like the argument that we said before. If Rebbe said he got up at midnight, and he also says that I got up after 2 ashmurot, it means, I'm sorry, it doesn't mean he got up after 2 shifts. He got up before 2 shifts. That's what Kidmu Einai. My eyes preceded 2 shifts. Okay, but it's the same thing. Umando Amar Tami de Rebbe Nassan, Rosh Hashmara Tatichona, because of the pasuk with Gidon and Shoftim that says he came to the edge of the camp during the middle shift. Now so it's really just a rephrasing of the previous statement. Now the Gemara asks, Ma makayim Rebbe Nassan Taimei de Rebbe Chatzos Laila. Well, how is Rebbe Nassan going to explain how King David could get up 2 shifts before 2 shifts were left, and that turns out to be midnight? So pe'amim chatzos laila u'pe'amim kidmu einai ashmuras. So the answer is, says Reb Nassan, that King David had 2 different patterns of waking up. One thing we do know is King David, when he would wake up after sleeping at night, he woke up in the middle of the night. The question is, did he wake up? One pasuk seems to say that every night he woke up at midnight. Has anyone ever heard of this prayer service called Tikkun Chatzos? Mm-hmm. So what is Tikkun Chatzos? It is a practice that some very pious people practice to this very day, that they will get up after having slept maybe 4 hours, go to bed at 8, wake up right before midnight, and they will recite this prayer service that is printed in some of our older Sidurim. You won't find it in the Art Scroll, no. That much I guarantee. But if you look in certain other Hebrew-only Sidurim, you will find it as a prayer service with various different psukim and passages. And then a pious person starts his day at midnight.
And then learns after that.
And
so he does this all night till dawn, and then he starts his chakra?
No. He'll stay Tikkun Chatzos for, let's say, half an hour, and then he'll learn, and He'll learn for the rest of the night, and then we'll get up for shach, and then he'll daven shachars, and then he'll go to work, and then repeat.
Rinse and repeat. Is that halachic midnight? Not midnight.
Yeah, halachic
Like
midnight.
10.
Yeah. And anyone who does this, you'll never know who they are, because no, you generally won't. Maybe in Jerusalem you could find a minyan. I don't know, but I've never heard of a minyan meeting for Tikkun Chatzos. Yeah, but where did we learn the practice from? From King David. King David used to do this every single day. He would wake up. But Rabbi Nassan says not every night did he do this. Sometimes he would rise at Chatzos, and upa'amim kidmu einai ashmuros. But there were other times where he would wake up and there were 2 shifts left at night. According to my opinion, that means that he woke up after 4 hours of night. See, according to you, he woke up, according to you, Rebbe, that you hold there are 4 shifts, he woke up every night consistently after 2 3-hour shifts, meaning after 6 hours. So he'd go to bed, let's say at 6 p.m. He would wake up right before Chatzos, and he would say his prayers Tikkun Chatzos, and that would be his whole night. But according to me, he varied. Sometimes he alternated. Sometimes he would get up at Chatzos, and sometimes he would get up at, let's say, 10 p.m., after sleep from 6 to 10, a 4-hour shift, because I hold there are 3 shifts, and that's when he would get up. Okay. And so how do you explain that? When King David was entertaining guests who would dine with him, he was having affairs of state, and he would have a special king's dinner, then he couldn't go to bed as early as he wanted to. And so therefore he would have chatzos laila. He would get up at midnight. But when he was just eating by himself, just the family and himself, he could go to bed earlier, and therefore kidmu einai ashmuros. He slept only 1 shift into the night, 1 out of 3, and then would wake up and he would have 2 shifts left. And that's why he said in another pasuk in Tehillim that my eyes got up while there were still 2 shifts left. So therefore, Rabbi Nassan defends his position even with the psukim in Tehillim, which Rebbe had used to support his position. So mikol makom lo hava shachra atya umashkach leDavid damich. However, one thing we do know is that no matter what opinion you subscribe to, King David never slept into the day. That never happened. That he would wake up and it was morning. Okay, Husha David Omar, and this is what King David meant when he said in another pasuk in Tehillim, Ura chevodi, wake up, my glory. Ura hanevel v'chinor, wake up. Let's see, navel is the lyre and the kinor is the harp, I think. How do they translate navel? I think it's either a lyre or some stringed instrument. Ira shachar, I will wake up the morning, meaning I will be awake before the morning arrives. So, itar yikari min kume ikare devari, meaning wake up my glory in the presence of the glory of my creator. In other words, I'm an important guy, said King David, but I have to wake up my glory, my honor. My honor has to wake up in the presence of God's honor. Because my glory and my honor is nothing compared to the honor of my creator. And therefore, ira shachar, and therefore I will wake up the morn. Ana havena ma'orer shachra, shachar lo hava ma'orer li. I will wake up the morning will never wake
receive the dawn.
Wake me up, right? Okay, v'haya yitzro mekatrago va'omer lo, and then King David's Yetzer Hara would constantly try to seduce him and argue with him and tell him, David, darkan shel melacham lios hashachar ma'oreran. David, what are you doing waking up so early? Look at every other king in the world. Every other king sleeps in and wakes up in the morning. Va'at Amar Ayira Shachar, and you say that you're going to arouse the dawn. So Darkan Shel Melachim Lios Sheyishenim Ad Shalosh Shos. Va'at Amar Chatzos Laila Akum. Normal kings sleep into the third hour into the morning,
Oh, yes.
right? And that's what the Gemara in Maseches Berachos says. That's the amount of time that you have to recite Kriya Shema in the morning. The amount of time that kings sleep in. That's still considered morning, because even kings don't wake up until 9 a.m., assuming that the morning starts at 6 a.m., right? So, yeah, now you wonder why we have a 9:30 minyan when the yeshiva bachurim are home. It's because they think they're the kings. Yeah. Okay. So the Atomar Chatzos Laila Akom, and you, King David, say that you'll wake up at midnight. What are you doing? That's not the way a king is supposed to behave. V'hu Omer, and King David said back, no, I will wake up at midnight to give thanks to you, Hashem, al mishpatei tzidkecha, for the statutes of your righteousness. Okay, so now the Gemara continues, and it says, let's take a look at the words Ura hanevel v'chinor. Let's take a look at these words, arouse or awaken, these two musical instruments, the navel and the kinor, the lyre and the harp.
Are these his alarm clocks?
Well, we'll see. The Gemara is going to discuss this. Umeha David Oisa, what did King David do when he would wake up? So Amar Rebbe Pinchas b'shem Rebbe Elazar b'Rebbe Menachem, haya notel nevel v'chinor v'nosno l'mera'ah shosav. When King David would go to bed, he would place these two instruments by his head, va'omed b'chatzi halayla u'menagein bahem, and then as soon as he woke up at midnight, he would start playing them, kedei sheyishmeu chaverei Torah, so that Talmidei Chachamim could hear him playing the instruments. Now, what does that really mean? Is that everyone was in earshot of King David's bedroom? Right,
Five armed forces coming in.
Yeah. So umahayu chaverei Torah omrim. So, and when they heard King David playing the instruments, what would they say? Uma im David hamelech osek b'Torah anu alachas kama v'kama. If King David is waking up at midnight and he's the king, then certainly we should have, and he's got so many important affairs to deal with, and he certainly could excuse himself from studying Torah. Then we who are Torah scholars, how much more do we have an obligation to wake up early? King David was an inspiration to the Talmidei Chachamim. So whatever else you're going to say about King David, about the conflicts and the trespasses of his life that are recorded quite explicitly in the prophets, one thing we do know is that he was a man of great passion in his love of Hashem, and he was an inspiration to other people. So,
we know how old he was when he passed away with this.
he was 70. He was 70.
He got the
Oh,
70
sleep
years.
deprivation. We got to 70.
He got the
Which
70
in those
years.
days was pretty old. Yeah.
He got the 70 years from heaven.
It was, it's not, I don't know if you could say that that's old.
Back then.
King David said in the Psalms, you may,
It's about 70.
the average lifespan is 70, uvigvuros shmonim shana, and with mighty people it's 80 years. So he made it to 70.
Those were the 70 years from heaven.
There's a midrash that says that
He was not meant to.
Adam gave 70 years to King David of his life, because Adam lived 930. He was supposed to live 1,000. Okay, so then there's another opinion about King David's harp, which is Amar Rabbi Levi, Kinor hayatoilui keneged chalonotav shel David. That it's not that the lyre and the harp were by his head, but they were by his window. V'hayaruach tzefonis min hasheves balayla u'minaf nefes bo. And at midnight, a northerly wind would blow through the window and start playing the instruments. And it would make the music on its own. And that was sort of like King David's alarm clock. Hadahu dichsiv, and that's why the pasuk says, it says in another pasuk in the context of Elisha the prophet that the minstrel played the musical instrument. V'hinei kinagin baminagin in k'tiv kan. It doesn't say that there was a minstrel actually playing. Ella kinagin haminagin, but rather in the context of King David, it says kinagin haminagin. It was like the playing of an instrument, that it seems that the instrument played on its own. So that's how we know that the instruments played on their own by letting the wind pass through the strings, and that's what caused the music to play. Okay, so we'll hold it here for today. Have a great day, everybody. We'll continue.
Divine assistance, it sounds like. That's probably-
It seems that way. Yeah.
The wind came right up, that's all, it's right at that time. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
See the message? Wherever I put to the top, wherever it was, over up, yeah.
Oh, who knows? Yeah, although we'd have to see if the timing works out. In all likelihood, this is a later time. There were other, there is a Rebbe Hillel and then there's a Hillel, so there could be a Menachem and a Rebbe Menachem, two different people.
Referring to the Pirkei Avos.
Yeah.
That's still ringing in my ear. That was very powerful.
Oh,
That share. I know I said that earlier, but.
Thank you.
Historically, there's a piece that just sort of, and then you see it's in the words, in the
Yeah.
reference, so it's just blew me away, but.
Thank you.
Sure. No, that's something insult to be called an actor, it's a compliment. No, I. Just have to do a lot of that.
Possibility of myself getting together with you for about 15 minutes or so. I just want to go over there's some programs and things that I want to sponsor and bring to the body. That just get your comments on it and see if there would be interest or whatever on that.
Sure.
Okay.
The question is when. I have some time after Shachris, but I think you're in Rabbi Lesher's class right after Shachris. Is it?
And today we're having a CM there too, because we just finished in the facility show. But yeah, I can do. I'll work around your schedule too. Just
So
today,
is he giving a class today?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I still do.
Okay.
Is tomorrow.
Tomorrow's not
Right.
going to work. After Shacharis, I have to go to the hospital to get something done. So and I'll sort of be out of commission. We won't be able to be until next week, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
we'll do next week.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.